participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you for being here on a Tuesday. It is Pushing the Limits. What's up, PTL Nation? Yes, that's right. That's what I'm calling you now, PTL Nation, because we got listeners all over the country and, quite frankly, all over the world, and I appreciate all of you very, very much. Thank you so much for being here. Busy show lined up for you today. We have a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. We're live on YouTube. We're live on TikTok. We're live everywhere. The FM AM dial, Twitch. My personal YouTube page is at PTL Radio Show, the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network. And thank you for joining us. Coming up here in just a few, staunch Trump supporter. He has some very popular right-wing spaces on X. David Pollock's going to be joining us for an all-out, duke-it-out debate. So it is interesting because, I'm driving into work today, and I got to be honest with you. When I'm in my car, it's almost like that's my time to unwind and relax. I'm playing music on my phone, Bluetooth. I love music, and I'm playing a lot of the stuff that I like, and it's kind of like my way to unwind. Occasionally, once in a while, I will listen to Howard Stern or satellite radio, but for the most part, I listen to music. Once in a while, I'll tune in by accident sometimes to right-wing talk radio, which is unlistenable. I mean, it's so bad. But I tuned into a station today that I normally never tune into, and I was laughing as I'm listening to these three idiots this morning talking about how the Trump administration secured the release of Mark Fogel. Now, if you don't know who Mark Fogel is, he's an American teacher who was detained for more than 3 years in Russia for having marijuana on his person, which is awful. I think he got like a 13 or 14-year sentence. Absolutely terrible. So obviously him being sent back home to his family is a good thing, right? I don't care who the president is. That's a good thing. But these right-wing turds on the radio were like, oh, look at Donald Trump. He's getting things done, and he's not giving anything in return. And I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't make sense. Vladimir Putin wouldn't just strike a deal with Donald Trump without getting something in return. And I'm thinking, I think these people are lying. Turns out they were. And unlike Joe Biden, when he got prisoners home, like a Brittany Griner, you can disagree with the exchange, but they were very transparent about it. They said who the exchange was for, which is what every president should do. Not the Trump administration, at least not now. That's right. They are characterizing it, the White House, as an exchange. But they're not providing any details on what that exchange entailed. They are not being honest with the American people. So all you right-wing morons out there have no idea what you're talking about when you say, oh, you see, Putin caved. We got an American back, and Trump didn't give anything else in return. That's not true. For all we know, he could have released 25 people. We have no idea because the White House isn't telling us because they're not transparent, and all they care about is making Donald Trump look good. So for all you right-wing pukes out there on social media or on the radio, which is what I heard today, oh, look at that, Joe Biden had to give up this, this, and this. Trump didn't have to give up anything. No, the White House just isn't releasing any details, at least not yet, because they're idiots just like all of you. And while all this is going on, the Trump cult is in full effect. That's right. Donald Trump embarrassing the country on a world stage again while meeting with the King of Jordan and looking at Marco Rubio, who was visibly uncomfortable. Trump now, all of a sudden, is dramatically changing his position from yesterday to today on Gaza. Well, what do I mean by that? Now, apparently, we're not going to buy Gaza. We're just going to take a sovereign nation. I'm not making this up, folks. Have a listen to this.
U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What is that?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it. What is he talking about? One day we're going to buy it. The next day we're just going to take it. What about all the, and he was asked, by the way, moments later, he was asked, what if the Palestinians in Gaza don't want to leave? Didn't give an answer. It's so embarrassing. And you see that idiot Marco Rubio. I call Marco Rubio an idiot because he just sits there with his uncomfortable face, knowing that everything that Donald Trump is saying is ridiculous. And he just sits there like the doofus he is, and as uncomfortable as he is. And while Donald Trump is embarrassing us on the world stage, as he did today, right in front of the King of Jordan, claiming that we're just going to take over a sovereign nation, you have Uday from Uday and Kusei, also known as Donald Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr. Yeah, Eric made another right-wing appearance, and he's continuing to spread the conspiracy theories about 50 million or 100 million in Gaza sent to condoms. It went from 100 to 50. It's really weird in the same interview. Have a listen to this.
When Elon and my father go in there and they want to audit the IRS, when they want to audit USAID, who is spending $100 million to send condoms to Gaza, let alone running shrimp on treadmill and all the other ridiculous things. The Democrats go crazy. Let them do it. I'm a business guy. I understand this world very, very well. I want them to follow that money, right? Because it's more than, again, the shrimp dancing on the treadmill. It's more than the $50 million for the condoms to Gaza.
Literally in the same interview, 5 minutes earlier, first he said 100 million of condoms to Gaza. Then it went a couple minutes later to 50 million. It's actually zero. That whole story has been debunked. But these right-wing morons and Biff, also known as Eric Trump, claiming that all these condoms were sent to Gaza. That's been debunked. It's not true. You know what else has been debunked? Donald Trump's election-rigged campaign that he keeps continuing to support even after January 6th. Yes, that's right. In the interview he did with Bret Baier, which didn't go very well, they've released a little bit more of the interview, the Super Bowl interview. Here's Donald Trump again saying that the election was rigged.
Putin, do you squeeze him to get him to the table? I mean, how do you...
It would have, look, I say it all the time. This would have never happened if I were president. If the election weren't rigged, this would have never happened. And let's see whether or not Fox lets you put that in, okay? If the election weren't rigged, do you hear me, rigged? Let's see, I mean, this would have never happened. It wouldn't happen with Putin, and October 7th would have never happened either.
Yeah, it would have never happened. You know what else would have never happened? January 6th. People wouldn't have died if not for you. You know what else wouldn't have happened? We wouldn't have been losing 3,000 to 5,000 people a day from COVID if you weren't there. You know what else wouldn't have happened? We wouldn't have gotten $8.4 trillion in debt, okay? The economy wouldn't have gone down the toilet. It would have never happened. Yeah, I'm sure Vladimir Putin said, geez, you know, let's invade Ukraine because Joe Biden is president. Makes absolutely no sense because look at all the money that Joe Biden has sent to Zelensky. Apparently, that money wouldn't have been sent to Zelensky under Donald Trump, so wouldn't it have been the opposite? Would have made more sense to invade Ukraine when Trump's president. How's that working out, by the way? Is the war over yet? He said it'd be over in 24 hours. Just throwing that out there, too. And again, here's Donald Trump with the conspiracy theories, even though he won the election. Now he's claiming that Kamala Harris didn't get 75 million votes.
They really do. You won the popular vote. You won all the swing states. But still, Kamala Harris got 75 million votes in the country.
Well, if you believe the whole thing.
Yeah, okay. Let's just say
it is ridiculous.
That the election was as it was.
Excuse me. There are 7 swing states. I won them all.
You did
by a lot.
But let me just get to the dismount here.
And I won the popular.
Have you thought about how to try to bring the country together, to reach out or to find common ground? Have you thought about that?
What a stupid question by Bret Baier. No, he hasn't thought about that because he's not capable of it. That's why, Bret. How do you not question him on that? How? He's now saying, I won the popular vote. Yeah, you lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton. You lost the popular vote badly to Joe Biden. You'll never hear him talk about that. But yeah, it had to have been fair because I won the popular vote this time around by 1.3%, by the way. But apparently, according to Donald Trump, those 75 million votes that Kamala Harris got were illegitimate. I mean, you can't make this stuff up with this clown. You just can't. Every word out of his mouth is BS. Every word. He could be talking about taking over Gaza. He could be talking about promises of lowering inflation and lowering prices at the pump. By the way, the opposite has happened. The average price of gas throughout the country has gone up since Donald Trump has taken office. You all were duped. Thank you, James Carr. for the $20 super chat donation on YouTube. We appreciate you. We also have a goal today. Any super chats, donations, we will be reading your questions and your comments live on the air. So thank you, James. We do appreciate your support very much so. And as I mentioned, David Pollock's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. It's going to be a good debate. He is a huge Donald Trump supporter. So if you're making any donations in the super chat, we will literally read your questions or comments live on the air if you do so in advance. So here's something interesting. As Donald Trump usually does with people in his orbit, he almost always, at one point or another, throws them under the bus, unless you're willing to go to jail for him. Now, I don't think JD Vance is willing to go to jail for Donald Trump. Obviously, it didn't work out very well for Mike Pence. But we're only 3 weeks into his new administration. And Bret Baier asked him if JD Vance could be his successor in 2028. And listen to the way he answers the question.
Do you view Vice President JD Vance as your successor, the Republican nominee in 2028?
No, but he's very capable. I mean, I don't think that I think you have a lot of very capable people. So far, I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's too early. We're just starting.
But by the time you get to the midterms, he's going to be looking for an endorsement.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that this has been the greatest opening, almost 3 weeks, in the history of the presidency.
It's definitely been the fastest and the most stuff
Well,
happening.
we've done so much so fast, and we really had to, because they have really, what they've done to our country is so sad. It's so sad. We're going to be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
A lot of people are saying, notice how every single time he answers the question that way, he never is direct with the actual people that are making those statements. A lot of people are saying I'm the best president in the history of this country. A lot of people are saying it was the biggest inauguration ever. A lot of people are saying that what I've accomplished in 3 weeks is more than anybody has accomplished in the history of this country. A lot of people are saying there's nobody better in the SAC than me. A lot of people are saying, I mean, he always says that. It's constant with Donald Trump. It's always lying and manipulating. That's what this guy does. That's what this guy does. It's lying and manipulation constantly. Constantly. That's what he does. So what have we learned in the last 24 hours? Once again, we've learned that Donald Trump will flip-flop and will completely change topics. And if he doesn't change topics, he will lie. One day he says that we are going to buy Gaza. Next day he says that we are going to own Gaza. He has no plan on how he would do that. He has obviously not thought it through. He just said it to appease Benjamin Netanyahu. And I think it's utterly a disgrace. All right. So with all that being said, I do enjoy having a good spirited debate and a good discussion with somebody who is on the other side, at least supporting Donald Trump. And this guy joining us right now, you might have watched his podcast. He's a popular right-wing podcaster, a staunch Donald Trump supporter. He's done this show before. We always have a very good, respectful, and spirited debate. Of course, I'm talking about David Pollock from The David Pollock Show. David, I appreciate you coming on, as always, from your luxurious studio, which I am always very jealous about. Good to see you. How are you?
You should introduce me as here to answer for everything I'm mad at Donald Trump about. It's David Pollock, because then it goes, he said this and that. Do you agree with it?
Well, I will be honest with you. There is a lot that I'm very angry about. You're right about that.
Here to answer for everything I'm mad about.
Well, I certainly don't want you to answer for everything, but I definitely want to get your take and your opinion.
I come on your show. It's fun.
And I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
So let's go through the first 3 weeks, and then we'll talk maybe a little bit more about today.
Of course.
Obviously, you would agree with me. A horrible tragedy with this plane crash that took place at over Reagan International Airport.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, a horrible tragedy, right? What did you make of the press conference hours later when Donald Trump started talking about DEI without even knowing who the pilots were?
What do you mean when he said DEI? Are you talking about where he said...
The press conference.
Right. Well, what specifically are you talking about with respect to DEI?
He brought up DEI hires within the FAA, and a lot of people on the far right didn't mention the fact that he had gutted half of the FAA in his first week in office, and Elon Musk put pressure on the president. They let him go, and they didn't even fill somebody in that seat until the day after the crash. But that's here nor there. He brought up DEI.
But I
And
don't think he applied. I don't think he attributed.
He
that
said it could
crash
be.
to DEI.
When he's asked, are you blaming DEI? His response was, it very well could be.
Right, but he didn't make any assertions as to one way or the other. He said that they were going to investigate it.
But why even bring that up, though? Why not just say what you just said? We're going to investigate. We're going to see what the issues were. Let the investigation take its course, and then we will make some decision, possibly make some changes. Why even bring up DEI?
Well, the simple answer to your question is because he's Donald Trump. That's why. But
so he's a douchebag. He's a douchebag.
No, I wouldn't say he's a douchebag. That's his style. His style is, he calls it how it sees it. Some people like that. But the reality is you can't look at what happened in DCA and a lot of, not just DC, whether it's train derailments, whether it's the responses to other tragedies, whether it's, you have to take a look at whether we're hiring the best and brightest to serve in key roles versus just trying to check a box so people feel good about themselves.
I understand that.
It's fair to bring it up.
Well, I don't know. I disagree with you. I don't think it's fair to bring up DEI when he has absolutely no idea who the pilots even were. I think that's extremely irresponsible. And I do find it interesting that he didn't talk about how he gutted the FAA, and you could look at what he did in his first week in office. They didn't even have a president there because Elon Musk put pressure on the guy to be let go. But I didn't want anybody talking about that the next day. I want the president and I want his administration talking about the people who lost their lives. We're going to be there for them. Let's do a thorough investigation. And then that same day he's asked, are you going to go to the crash site? And he says, what do you expect me to do? Swim? Which I thought was extremely insensitive.
It was a stupid question too. So he was answering it. And it's, where are you going to go to the crash? How is he going to go to the crash site?
Question?
Are you going to go to the crash site? What is it?
We're not talking about crash site. Well, first of all, if he wanted to go on a boat with, they would allow him to do so.
What? To go? Okay.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the same reason why George W. Bush went to the 9/11 site and stood on rubble with a megaphone. And I gave him credit for that moment, even though I wasn't, and said, I hear you and the world hears you, to talk to the families, to talk to the first responders. It's called leadership, David.
Yes, but standing on the rubble of the Twin Towers with a megaphone to speak to the first responders that are doing bucket brigades and cleaning up bodies is different than standing on a boat in the water going, okay, there was a crash here. I just don't think there was a reason.
That's not what she was asking.
But
David,
either way,
that's not what
I'm going to throw you a bone because I do think what you're seeing right now, and look, people need to take a breath, by the way. I know a lot of friends are afraid to fly, even personally. Like I have to travel and I'm like, is it safe to fly? And then I have to sit back and remind myself, small planes crash, big planes crash, planes collide into each other. Air travel is dangerous still, even though it's the safest it's ever been. And mishaps happen. What it tends to happen is after there's a high profile crash, like what happened in DC, everything that happens at an airport, whether an airplane, has tape on its wing or whatever, it becomes news and people freak out about it. And then it becomes a much bigger issue. So I think people need to go, okay, what happened in DC was a tragedy. We'll probably find out what happened. It was a symphony of errors. But that being said, air travel is still safe. I don't believe that the crash in Philadelphia or the experimental pilot in California or any of these things are actually related. And so I don't think they're all related to the FAA. But to your point, we're seeing a perfect storm of things happening right now because I don't believe Pete Buttigieg was a very good Secretary of Transportation. I just don't think he did a very good job. Whether he did or didn't publicly, he didn't ever seem to have a grasp. We saw airline wait times go up. A lot of people were really frustrated with air travel. We saw train derailments. We've seen
we saw more train derailments under the Donald Trump administration than the Joe Biden administration.
Regardless,
what do you mean regardless? Though you're saying he didn't do a good job, and I'm telling you,
there were other. Pete Buttigieg was publicly out there talking about train or bridges and roads being racist, and he took a very sort of a social justice sort of angle to transportation rather than I think really focus on what needed to happen.
So many of the safety standards were taken away under the first Donald Trump administration.
Yes, but also how many FAA employees were fired because they didn't take a COVID jab or left because they didn't want to take a COVID jab?
No idea. Do you have the stats on that?
I don't have the stats, but there were people who left the FAA during that time. A lot of people left federal service in a lot of different places.
But look at what Trump has done and he gutted half the FAA in the first week.
And here's why I say it's a perfect storm. And here's where I'm going to meet you halfway, I think. I do think there is some danger in the approach that Elon has taken. Look, I do think we have a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. We're starting to see it. And it's good that we clean up government. It needs to be leaner. It's taxpayer dollars. It's not a country club. But that being said, I do grow concerned sometimes when some of these sensitive positions, when that fork in the road email went out and it said, hey guys, your life's going to suck unless you quit. That doesn't really apply to FAA. These guys go to work every day. They're not working at home. So
what about FBI agents that just did their job on January 6th?
Well, I don't believe. Well, I disagree with this all the time. I don't believe FBI agents just did their job on. Let me clarify.
Every FBI
agent
agent,
their job. I think they shouldn't have done their job because they were sent to do some horrific things to Americans that they never should have done.
Should January 6th have been investigated?
I think the way it was investigated and prosecuted was an injustice. Absolutely.
Okay, that's your opinion, but do you think January 6th should have been investigated? Okay,
I gave you my answer.
He's firing people for doing their job. There are many people that were instructed to do their job, and Donald Trump is firing them.
And they should have had the good sense to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hold a pregnant mother at gunpoint at 3:00 in the morning for a nonviolent crime. They should have used, just because you're given a weapon and a badge and you're given orders, it doesn't mean you carry out those orders without questioning those orders. So
conducting an investigation and as an FBI agent and being told, hey, I want you to investigate what happened is not.
They'll mix up the FBI agents that were in the field arresting people with the Department of Justice officials that were fired, that were involved in the January 6th prosecutions. And don't forget,
well, he's arresting all sorts of different people that he doesn't like. But that's not the way this country should work.
Don't forget the people who conducted that flawed Mar-a-Lago raid with the classified documents being bungled and everything.
A lot of people would characterize that as not being flawed, and that they gave him a year and he defied a subpoena. If somebody defies a subpoena for a year,
those agents still sought orders to shoot, to kill if necessary, to use deadly force if necessary.
That's in every raid. That's in every raid.
It's a former president.
Doesn't matter who it is.
And then because they were so excited to find these documents, they pulled them out of the boxes and started taking pictures of them and then refiled them out of order, which caused the whole case to get thrown out.
That's in every investigation where they'll take out things and take pictures. It's part of conducting evidence. And by the way,
that's not how you handle classified evidence.
When you're conducting, I wouldn't even classify this as a raid, but when you're conducting a raid, I'm not even an FBI agent. I don't have law enforcement experience, but even I know this. Yes, you are trained to shoot, to kill, or shoot at center mass if your life is in danger.
Not at the former president's house.
It doesn't matter who it is.
It does totally matter. The president's protected by armed security. You can't go engaged armed security.
You're saying that if somebody points a gun at an FBI agent that is conducting a raid and they have the right to be there, and somebody is showing deadly force towards you,
Secret Service has the right to be there. And Secret Service is charged with protecting the president, even against the FBI.
It doesn't mean you have the right to use deadly force against somebody that has the right to be there that's in law enforcement. You know that, David.
If somebody in the FBI pointed a gun at the president, Secret Service would be within their orders to fire on that FBI agent, whether or not the FBI agent was in.
So that's your issue, not that Donald Trump defied a subpoena for a year and took classified documents.
No, because there was a legitimate legal question on whether or not he had the right to retain those documents, and that question, that question never got fully vetted because it got dismissed because of the sloppy way
we all know
agents handled the classified.
We all know he didn't. I think the sloppy person is the orange orangutan who you support. But anyway, let's go to what has taken place in Gaza, David. If you're just joining us, David Pollack. So David, he said that without any plan.
You got to say, David Pollack, Trump apologist. Yes.
To an extent, David. But
if you're just joining us now, we have David Pollack, Trump apologist, on the show.
David, he said that we would own Gaza, or at least buy it. That's what he's been saying until today. I'll get to that. He said we're going to buy Gaza with no plan on how to displace over 2 million Palestinians. And today, in front of the president, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was in front of the president of Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, well, we'll just take it over. David, it's a sovereign nation. You can't just take over a sovereign nation and own it or buy it.
Palestine isn't a sovereign nation. I don't even know.
We're talking about Gaza right now.
Right. Gaza is a territory, essentially. That's not that.
So America can just take it over and displace 2 million
and Trump
people?
is not talking about taking it over. What Trump is trying to do, and look, again, yes, I'm a Trump apologist, but what Trump is trying to do, and this is what he does, he takes bold action, and then he kind of figures it out along the way. It's the art of the deal. It's always that way with Trump. We have to figure out what to do with the situation in Gaza and the West Bank and in the whole region. We have to figure out what to do.
I agree.
With the people who are described as
I don't
Palestinians.
disagree. We all have to figure out what
We
to
have
do.
to figure out a solution. A two-state solution, although
Fine.
people have proposed it, will never work because the people who live in Palestine don't want to coexist from river to the sea with the people of Israel. And kicking this can down the road for the next event isn't going to do anything. We have to do something bold.
Okay, so David, I don't think bold is displacing 2 million Palestinians with no plan on how to do it. That's not bold. That's stupid.
Well, maybe so, but here's the reality of the situation. Just like Israel, how Israel got there to begin with after World War II. Let's not forget how all the Jews were in a protected state called Israel. They needed a place for the displaced people that survived the Holocaust. Now you have people in a region living next to Israel. They claim it's their home. They're not willing to coexist with the people who claim it's their home. You have Iran using terror proxies to attack Israel on their behalf, whether or not they requested it. And I would probably argue the Palestinian people really are not too thrilled with Hamas attacking Israel on their behalf either. So you have a group of people who live in an unsafe place that's ruled by a terrorist organization that's on the outs, and they live in rubble now.
There are a lot of those people that do not want to go elsewhere. They still call Gaza their home, and regardless of what our opinions might be on where Gaza's at right now, I wouldn't consider it bold or intelligent. I would consider it embarrassing to say that we're just going to take over Gaza, whether we own it or turn it into real estate property or whatever the case may be. And when asked today, and he's been asked multiple times, what are you going to do if they don't want to leave? He has not answered the question because, David, here it is. He has no plan. He just says things and has no plan. Example, you said he's a great negotiator. Let's talk about the 25% tariffs. Okay. MAGA world
which
out
worked
there,
perfectly, by the way, between Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So the MAGA world out there, he makes these 25% tariff threats. Okay.
Correct.
And MAGA world out there saying that Mexico and Canada have, they caved in. Well, here is the reality of the situation. The president of Mexico said that she was going to send 10,000 troops. Under the Biden administration, she had 15,000 troops there. That's minus 5,000 troops.
Didn't do any good, did it?
Okay. Well, listen, there's a reason why I'm saying this. Donald Trump is calling this a victory. Okay, that's number one. Number two, he was claiming a victory because Trudeau said he was going to put $1.2 billion towards border security. David, guess what? He made that announcement in December. Okay, you got a fentanyl czar. Less than 1% of all the fentanyl in this country is from Canada. And he's celebrating. In the middle of the night, he caved into China and he took away those 25% tariffs. But guess what? China said, screw you. We're going to tariff you anyway. The economy is struggling because of this. That's part of the reason. How is he a great negotiator? He got nothing from Mexico. He got nothing from Canada. He got nothing from China. Why do you guys keep saying
that's not true? He got nothing. First of all, he threatened the 25% tariffs, right? And then what happens? Right? Mexico gives Trump whatever he wants. He threatens the tariffs in Canada. Canada tries to play tough, gives Trump whatever he wants. And you say,
what did he get? What did he want?
I'm going to tell you. You said these deals were secured under the Biden administration, or they were done since December.
15,000 troops at the border. Yes.
Right. But they weren't actually doing anything. Under Trump, since he was inaugurated, illegal immigration across the border is down like 95%. Not only that, people are lining up at passport offices to self-deport themselves because they don't want to get removed.
Okay, but hold on.
Working.
But what you're saying is different than I am asking you. What did Donald Trump get in return? Now, if you want to talk about
what he got in return was serious border support, not the fake, oh yeah, we'll send troops there while your border is still wide open.
That
is actually stopping on the border. Remain in Mexico is in place now.
So you're claiming that the president, you're claiming that the president of Mexico sent 15,000 troops to protect the border that were, quote, not serious. But
Correct.
When she sends 10,000 troops to the border, 5,000 less, you're claiming, oh, wait, those troops are serious. I'm wondering how
come 15,000 troops then never stopped the caravan after caravan containing thousands of people traversing the entire continent?
Not true. In Donald Trump's and Joe Biden's last year, Joe Biden's last year in office, they were able to take in 1 million people and turn them away. 1 million people. So what you're saying is
so
not
the rest
true.
just got away. Where did all the illegal immigration that happened in this country, of record immigration in a Biden administration, how'd they get through those 15,000 troops?
First of all, I would add you, when Biden left office, there were less people crossing the border illegally than when Donald Trump left office.
Well, that's because when Trump won the election, there was a caravan literally coming through Mexico.
I mean,
and the night of the election, they turned around and went home. That's how serious they are about Donald
Trump.
Trump.
The problem I have is that when I say something like, which is a fact, that 15,000 troops under the president of Mexico, under Joe Biden, somehow with no evidence, they were unserious troops that you said, quote, weren't doing anything. But then when you get 10,000 troops under Donald Trump, and by the way, this deal just happened, somehow you're led to believe that, oh, well, wait, these troops are serious, but the 15,000 troops were not. I mean, come on, David. That's not an argument.
I don't think anybody would argue that despite whatever deals Trump or Biden made with the Mexican government, it didn't make a lick of difference in stopping the illegal flow of immigration across our border versus Trump's policies. Whether they're less troops, the policies and the actions of the Mexican government are much more effective in stopping the flow of illegal immigration. Why that is, I don't know. We can speculate on what the difference is.
Well, let me ask you.
We take Trump seriously, and I think that's the difference. And by the way, this is a 30-day pause. This is a 30-day pause in the tariffs. So if they don't make meaningful efforts to stop the flow of fentanyl, which is killing millions of Americans, and if they don't make legitimate efforts to stop illegal immigration, guess what? Tariffs are back.
Yeah, less than 1%, again, I repeat, of the fentanyl in this country comes from Canada. A border or a
how much comes from Mexico?
Well, we got a fentanyl czar in Canada, and Donald Trump was, like you, celebrating on that when it's virtually meaningless. And I would also add more illegal drugs entering this country illegally come from American citizens and not those that are undocumented. Do you want to live in a country, David, where ICE is going into synagogues and churches and schools and deporting some that, at least half from what I've seen, that are non-violent criminals and breaking up families? That's the country that you want?
Listen, here's the thing. I have a lot of, and this is we have to be very clear on. This isn't an anti-immigration stance. This isn't an anti-immigrant policy. This is an anti-illegal immigration policy. And the reason why that's important is because there's a lot of people waiting in a very long line, literally jumping through every hoop, checking every box, doing everything they can do to get to this country legally. And then you have people who go, I don't have to follow those rules. I'm special. And they're going to come into the United States illegally and go, well, I'm here now and I'm not violent. You can't kick me out. Well, damn right we can, because you didn't follow the rules. And do we want to fill our country up with people who started their journey to being an American in violating our rules? That's the problem.
So this is my problem with this argument, David.
Sure.
The Republican Party and people like yourself call yourself the party of law and order, respect the law, rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And you know where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah, but yet your president is a convicted felon.
Well, kind of important, but we don't even have to talk about that, even though it is laughable because they call themselves the Law and Order Party, and the president of the United States is a 34-count felon. But
there you go.
Truly, if this is about the safety of this country, and I should take that seriously, that you guys are telling the truth, then why would he pardon 600 or 700, it was more than 1,500, but 600 or 700 of them were violent criminals, some who beat police officers that day. I find that a little bit of hypocrisy. Do you agree with the president that was the right thing to do?
Yes, I do. So
some of those people that beat police officers on January 6th, you're okay with those pardons, and you want to lecture us about illegal immigrants that are nonviolent? You're totally okay with that?
Yes. First of all, they're Americans, and Americans, they can be treated differently than criminal aliens.
So if you're an American and you beat a police officer, it's okay to be pardoned. Is that what you're saying?
Second, and Trump has made this clear, and you and I had this conversation on the day we talked about Biden pardoning Hunter, and after which, by the way, he pardoned his entire
Biden was
family.
Never convicted of a violent crime, so let's not conflate the two.
There are always victims of violent crimes, and either way, the president.
Yes, there are, and Hunter Biden is not a violent criminal, David. It does matter. No, come on. It does matter.
Let me tell you my logic. So here's the deal. The premise in which Joe Biden pardoned his son was that this prosecution was politically motivated. My son wouldn't have been charged. This is what he said. My son wouldn't have been charged if he wasn't the president's son. Therefore, I am pardoning him what he did. Do I agree with what he did? No, but it was political. And then I said to you on that day, I said, now this is a very interesting thing. And you wanted me to tell you what I thought about that. I said, I don't have a problem with it, even though a lot of MAGA did. I said, you know why? He's the president. That's his right. And that's his son. And I said, but the important thing he said was he felt that conviction was politically, the potential conviction was politically motivated. Therefore, I said, when Donald Trump pardons all of the January 6th defendants because he says their prosecutions are political, we have to be fair and apply the same standard. So no, I don't think it's right that the January 6th people beat cops or broke laws. But guess what? Every single January 6th prosecution, every single one of them was politically motivated, and people were denied what I believe was fair justice under the law.
I can name you the names of those that pled guilty and owned what they did, but I'm going to go back to what we just talked about. Hunter Biden is not a violent criminal.
I have never.
Yes, it does, and here's why. It
doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. The crime matters, David.
Wait, what about the child molesters and the murderers that Biden gave clemency to?
And guess what? We can do whataboutism, but guess what, David? Unlike you, I am willing to call that out. I don't like pardons in general, period. I didn't like Joe Biden's pardons, but let's be clear on this. Hunter Biden had a drug problem. He never beat a cop. He wasn't convicted or charged with a violent crime. He had tax issues that he was found guilty of.
And a BS weapons charge. I'll agree with you on that.
This is important. Yeah. He had an unloaded gun. Seems to me the only gun that Republicans care about these days that he had for 13 days. He was convicted, didn't have a problem with that. There is a fine line and a large line.
I disagree with the weapons charge.
Hold on. There is a large line between having an unloaded gun that you did not commit a crime with other than you shouldn't have had the gun on your person and tax evasion than somebody who beats police officers with their own batons, sprays them with pepper spray. We know that one of those officers died the next day, Brian Sitnick. 140 officers were sent to the hospital. There is a fine line between beating the crap out of law enforcement and somebody who had tax evasion. Do not conflate the two, even though I'm willing to say I'm not okay with Joe Biden's pardons. If the idea is making America safer, which you guys continue to claim, and all these migrants with the not the proper documentation, and we want our country to be safe, then don't tell me you're okay with a bunch of people who beat the crap out of police officers on January 6th. It's ridiculous, David.
Like I said, I didn't say I was okay with people doing the action.
Are you okay with the pardon?
Yes, I'm not okay with the prosecution. I'm not okay with the prosecution. Let me ask you this, Brian. Let me ask you this. How do you cure the issue of people being politically prosecuted because January 6th was so offensive, and what they had to do was find ways. Remember, they went out of their way to find ways to charge people on January 6th. They didn't charge anybody with murder for that police officer.
Argument.
They charged
I'm not denying.
Go ahead.
David, I'm not denying that of the 1,500 plus people that were prosecuted, some of them may have been treated unfairly. I'm not talking about those people. I am specifically talking about on video, those who admitted guilt to beating police officers. Hold on. Make no mistake about it.
I'm understanding.
Those are the people that I'm talking about. And guess what, David? If you beat police officers and injure police officers, I'm not okay with that pardon, regardless of whether you think they got longer sentences than they should have. By the way, some of those people are back in jail. One of them got into a gun shootout with cops. Can you imagine if Joe Biden had pardoned somebody?
Wait a minute, like the illegals that murder American citizens when they're released from detainment?
You're changing the subject.
No, it's exactly the same.
Yes, you are. Hold on. Can you imagine if Joe Biden had pardoned a lefty American, who somehow stormed the Capitol because they didn't like an outcome that Republicans had done and had beat a police officer? Joe Biden pardons that person, hypothetically, and then a week later they get into a gunfight with police officers. Or there were several of those insurrectionists that were led free, and they've been found with child pornography. If you're going to talk about making America safer, you guys are not consistent. You're saying it on this show. You're literally okay. I'm not talking about those that you might think were not fairly treated or they were over prosecuted, whatever the case may be. There are tons of people, I mean hundreds, who were beating police officers that day. Many of them pled guilty. And you are telling me right now, you are okay with a blatant pardon for people who beat cops. That is not law and order. That is not pro-police, period.
All right. Well, I'm going to break this down for you because I can tell you this is an important issue for you. Very clear.
Isn't it an important issue for you too?
Yes, I'm going to explain, and I'm going to explain my position.
Okay.
Tying everything together for what we talked about in the last 10 minutes. I don't think anybody should be able to come into this country illegally and then once they're here, somehow be treated differently because they're already here, whether they're violent or not. If you came in illegally, we have the right to deport you. You broke our law. Let's stop there.
Why do you keep going back to illegal immigration?
Because I'm trying to tie it together for you with a little bow. Give me 30 seconds to do it. Okay? They come in illegally. I believe you asked me a question whether or not they should be removed. And I said, yes, all of them, whether they're violent or not. And then you made the nexus to January 6th and the pardons. And we talked about that. And so to be very clear, the reason why I am opposed to, or the reason why I support removing anybody here illegally is because they're not here legally. They violated the permission we gave them to stay here. If you
violate a law, you should be held to the highest extent of the law. Unless you
made to January 6th. Now I'm tying it. Now you made the nexus to January 6th. Let me explain my position on January 6th. January 6th is clear. No, I don't condone the actions of some of the. I don't let me be clear. However, I don't believe, regardless of the action that was took, regardless of who did what, and whatever kind of person they are after they were pardoned or not, on that day, even if you're one of the individuals that beat a police officer, rather than being charged with something like, I don't know, assault on a law enforcement officer, which we actually can prosecute.
A lot of them were.
But they were also charged and pled guilty to other crimes, which we don't ordinarily prosecute people who beat police officers for.
Right, and because we don't ordinarily have people storming the Capitol trying to overthrow a free and fair election.
But Brian, you're making my point.
Conspiracy.
You're making my point. And look, and I understand your position.
I don't like anybody who beats cops, and I don't think anybody who beats cops should be pardoned. Doesn't matter what it is.
Fair, but hear me out. The problem is we weren't prosecuting people for battery on a law enforcement officer. We were charging them with battery on a law enforcement officer and all these other things, which, by the way, they either pled guilty to or were convicted on.
All those other things like?
God, the Enron, I forget the 15 something, the Enron statute, because Congress was in session when they were rioting at the Capitol, so they charged them with interrupting an official proceeding and destruction of evidence,
which
the
is
terrorism charges,
yeah,
things like
some of them
that.
Were, yeah.
Okay. The point I'm getting at is, yes, they beat a police officer. Should they be prosecuted for that? Sure. The other things that they loaded onto it because January 6th was so offensive, that's where the justice system went too far. And as a result, none of those convictions should be allowed to stand because you can't separate the emotion of the prosecution.
Every single one of these individuals had the right to defend themselves in a court of law.
No, they did not.
Yes, they did.
Let me tell you something. Most of these people took plea bargains because they were facing very lengthy sentences in court, or in jail. And they said, rather than go to jail for 25 years for terror, I'm going to plead guilty to these other things and do 3 years in jail. And by the way, when they were in jail, they were thrown in solitary confinement for their own protection. They were treated horribly. Many of them got sick. Let me tell you something. These people were treated horribly. I don't care what their crime was.
I'm supposed to. Well, I do. I'm supposed to feel bad for people that
deserve to be treated fairly.
Yeah, I'm supposed to feel bad for people that beat police officers. That's really what you're saying. What about the families of the victims? What about the officers that committed suicide? What about Brian Sitnick's family?
Hold on. If a black man beats a police officer, can the police officer shoot him because it offends you so much that he beat the police officer?
Where did that happen? You're talking about Ashley Babbitt? Is that what you're talking about?
I didn't even go to Ashley Babbitt.
Okay, well, where did that happen? Where did they shoot people for?
What I'm telling you is, you said I don't like. Gosh, let me tell you. You said I don't like when people beat police officers.
No, I don't.
They should be treated because they were treated unfairly.
That's your characterization.
You don't. Listen, this is an important aspect of criminal defense. You don't give somebody a punishment based on how you feel about what they did. You give them a punishment based on what the law allows you to punish them for. You don't go, that guy pissed me off, I get to kill him because I'm angry. No,
even by that's not how I would characterize what went down. And even by your standards,
no, they were treated improperly by our justice
battery
system.
On a police officer, regardless. Donald Trump pardoned all those people
because of the way they were prosecuted. Because of the way they were prosecuted.
He said he would go case by case. He did not do that. That was a lie.
Because you couldn't.
Pardon to everybody.
Because once you opened up these files and looked at them, you said, how can I decide who was treated fairly and who wasn't? So you have to throw out all of it, because all of it was built on emotion and trumped up charges, not the actual crimes in which they committed. That is the Justice Department's problem, not President Trump's.
So obviously we agree to disagree on this one, but I do have some questions for some people that want to ask you in our super chat, if that's okay, David.
Hopefully it's a super chat. And I know they think nice things of me there. I read the comments.
You know what? If I went on your podcast, I'm sure I would get the same business. That's okay. That's part of it. All right. So Kim, thank you for your donation. Kim says, why should the president of the United States of a democracy be a fan of Putin and support Nazism tactics when it hurts and harms other humans? What would you say to that, David?
I don't even know what to say. What do you mean Nazism tactics? How can you guys continue to call President Trump a Nazi when he is the only president, by the way, a Republican president, that has done more to protect the Jewish people in this country and abroad? By the way, he just did a new executive order that literally deports people if they're here on a visa and they attack Jewish students.
Put another one up there when you see another one.
How can you guys still call him a Nazi?
Listen, I don't want to speak for Kim, but here's what I would say to that.
Sure.
Okay. I believe Donald Trump is running an oligarchy, and I believe it's a dictatorship. Now, why do I say that? Well, first of all,
I know why you say it.
Let's go to another one. Annoyed AF. That's an interesting name. Ask the guest, and you can see it right there at the bottom. If Elon was going in to look for wasteful government spending, why did he bring in 6 coders instead of 6 forensic accountants? I think that's a very good question.
I mean, that is an interesting question. I have to assume because I'm assuming he's using AI and software to process some of these files, in which would explain why he would bring in coders and not forensic accountants.
I would say, David, are you comfortable with a 25-year-old going on social media, admitting being a racist? And I mean, I don't, David, this is just me. I don't think this is funny. I think
you're talking about big balls, and
yes, but he's an open racist. Okay, he spreads hate, open hatred and racism. It's terrible, but he's white. And the next day,
I don't know,
Elon Musk and JD Vance defend him within hours and say he deserves a second chance. I'm wondering if that was a black employee that made very disparaging comments about people that look like you and me. Do you think Elon Musk and JD Vance would have responded the exact same way?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
David,
I
think you do.
You're asking me a ridiculous hypothetical.
No, it's
I
not.
don't agree with you. Yes, I think you'd be treated the same way.
So, okay, let me just get this right.
Let me just say
a white middle-aged kid, or 25, not middle-aged.
Yeah, I think he would be treated. I think everybody's treated fairly in this country, whether they're black or white.
If you're white and 25, and you spread blatant racism and hatred, you think a black person who said that about white people would be treated the same way by the Trump administration?
No, actually, and I don't know how they'd be treated by the Trump administration, but generally in our society, if a black individual says racist things about white people and you call it out, you're routinely, and I've heard this more than I care to count, that black people can't be racist. Only white people can be racist.
Well, I think that's Donald Trump's attitude.
That's a tenet of diversity, equity, inclusion, and critical race theory, that minorities don't have the ability to be racist because they're victims in this, so they can't be racist against their oppressors.
David,
so
I think you're
by
making
your own standards, the answer is clear. They would be treated better.
Not by my standards, by Donald Trump's standards.
No,
in this
by the standards of the
Kanye West, who has gone on social media in the last couple days, who has incited violence against Jewish people.
Correct.
And that is the guy who Elon Musk, by the way, allowed back on X. And that is the guy who Donald Trump invited to the White House for dinner the week he was praising Adolf Hitler. How can you defend that?
When did he invite Kanye to dinner?
He invited Kanye West and Nick Fuentes to dinner in his first administration.
When? In 2016?
It was like in the same week that he invited Kanye and Nick Fuentes, the same week. Kanye West made an appearance on the Alex Jones show,
right,
saying Hitler was a great guy.
Okay,
how do you think
we're going to go back to 2016 to call Trump a Nazi. Is this what we're doing now?
Okay, so first of all, you're doing that. I'm asking you to defend that. Can you defend Donald Trump inviting Kanye West to the
Donald
White
Trump
House
has done more for Jewish people in the United States and internationally than any other president in U.S. history, including Democrats.
He told me that if I didn't vote for him because I'm Jewish, that I need to get my head examined. That is offensive.
I'm sorry you were offended by that, but the reality is Trump has done more for Jewish people than any Democrat has ever done.
What has he done for me?
Harbor.
Tell me, I'm Jewish. What has he done for me?
What has he done for you?
Yeah. What has he done?
Well, I don't know what he's done for you specifically, but he's done.
I'm Jewish. He's done so much for the Jew. What has he done?
Send him a letter. Ask him.
Maybe we might have another world war.
He might send you a hat. If you
guess what? Yeah, trust me. I'll use it as toilet paper. David, we might have a war brewing and escalation because it appears as though Hamas might not be releasing the rest of the terrorists, and Donald Trump making threats on a world stage.
And I think that was a good threat to make. Listen, you might have not seen it in the last 4 years, so you forget that when we're talking about organizations like Hamas, and we're talking about organizations that hate Jewish people, hate America, hate Israel, and has attacked Israel, attacked Jewish people, attack American interests. By the way, don't forget, it was Iran who sent missiles at a U.S. base. A U.S. base, Iran sent missiles. And what did we do? Well, it didn't hurt anybody. This is Donald Trump's presidency now, not Joe Biden's weak, leaderless presidency.
And why does he keep blaming Joe Biden for all of his problems?
Because Joe Biden put us in this situation to begin with.
We
wouldn't even have. Let me tell you something. The Palestinian people would be living peacefully in Gaza if it wasn't for Joe Biden's weak leadership that allowed that October 7th attack to happen to begin with, because Iran emboldened them to do it.
Hamas, a group of violent terrorists that have been around since the mid-'80s, said, well, Joe Biden is president, so we'll do it now.
Exactly.
And we can't, because Donald Trump is so tough on Hamas. Okay, so we'll see what happens.
Correct. That is 100% accurate.
We'll see what happens here in the next week. Okay, so Juan, thank you for your donation, Juan, said, Trump said about groceries and gas prices that they will come down very rapidly. How does the president control the price of groceries and gas? I think that's a very fair question.
It is, but that's an economics question. You have to give him more than 3 weeks. We have eggs for some reason being stolen. We have chickens being foamed to death, and now it's spreading to cattle. So we have disease right now, and we have extermination of a lot of our livestock, which produces our eggs. I know people are complaining about egg prices and somehow saying it's Trump's fault. But the supply chain issues, by the way, that we had since COVID was because there was no bold leadership to do anything about the supply chain issues. It's true. Don't forget, remember the law enforcement strike that exacerbated the semi-truck drivers, the truck protests?
David,
all these things exacerbate your prices.
So when I bring up gas prices and the price of eggs, you bring up some value.
Going to go down. We just did. We just talked literally the other day. Signed a $1 billion trade deal with Japan, and Japan is going to buy our oil.
Okay, hold on. Let's
backtrack. The pipeline.
Hold on. Let me just get my question out to you, David. So I brought up egg prices and inflation up in 3 weeks, and you brought up some valid points, which is disease, bird flu. There's cause and effect. I think that's partially true. But I do find it interesting when we were number one compared to all the G7 countries around the world and coming over a global, trying to get over a global pandemic. You were willing to blame everything on Joe Biden, everything, inflation, gas prices. It was all Joe Biden's fault. In fact, you guys still do it now. But then when I bring up the prices when Donald Trump is in office that have skyrocketed, you all of a sudden now you want to
not skyrocket. They haven't gone down.
Eggs have gone up
because of disease.
Have not gone down. Right. So it's because of disease right now. But when Joe Biden was president, it can't be because of COVID. Do you see where I'm going with that? It's called hypocrisy.
No, it's different. Biden had 4 years, and inflation only went up, and then it barely stalled out. Prices never came down. Look, Donald Trump.
What are you talking about? Prices didn't come down. What are you talking about?
What prices came down under Joe Biden?
Inflation, the percentage of inflation that went down to 3% before Joe Biden left office, David.
Hang
on.
What
are you talking about?
The inflation rate slowed, but prices
went down. It didn't just slow, it dropped.
Okay, but just because inflation goes down doesn't mean prices go down. That just means the prices aren't going up as fast. There's a difference. And by the way, we don't need to litigate the economic discussion anymore. You know why? Donald Trump is president, and he won convincingly because people.
Then why do people like you keep bringing up Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg?
I didn't. You just did.
What are you talking about? The president of the United States is blaming Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg for everything. We talked about a plane crash, and you brought up Pete Buttigieg.
Because when I talked about Pete Buttigieg, the reason for that was because I said,
why do you pronounce his name like that, David?
I don't know how to freaking pronounce his name. I can't even spell it.
Buttigieg?
If you're thinking I said it for a specific reason, you have me wrong, my friend.
All right. Okay. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that one. Go ahead.
You know, I bent over backwards to pronounce Kamala's name correctly just because I was corrected that it was Kamala, and I didn't want people to say that I was purposely mispronouncing it. Because
well, you know, though, I'm not speaking about you, David, but you know that there's a lot of people on the far right. I didn't do it that way.
If I said Buttigieg, I was just speaking.
Understood. But you know, there's a lot of people on the right that
I'm not that guy.
Purpose, and I think
that being said, the reason why I brought him up is because of I believe that there's weaknesses within a lot of those departments that FAA being one of them, and unfortunately, poorly timed with Elon's trimming of the government fat is causing a perfect storm that I believe is that I am concerned about. Absolutely.
Understood. So, David, we've kept you long here, but I want to give you the opportunity. Is there any topic that you want to bring up that you think is important to discuss? We've covered a lot.
I do. I do have something.
Go ahead.
Because this is interesting. I believe, and this, I want to get your take on this because, and I talked about this last night on my show, and I put a post on TikTok about this too, because here, I don't know, and I want to get your take on who is responsible for this, because I know what I think I don't want to assume what I think you're going to say. I watched the Super Bowl halftime performance. One, I want to know what you thought of it. Two, there was a lot of people who started drawing attention, a lot of accounts on X. I don't know if they're conservative accounts or not. They would appear that way. Who drew attention to the fact there was no diversity in Kendrick's dancing crew. And people were pointing out, well, if you guys are so big on DEI, where are the white dancers? Now, I put out a video because I'm not a guy who would say Buttigieg's name incorrectly to make a joke. I put out a video saying, hey, everybody pump the brakes. And the second part you're gonna disagree with. But I said, everybody pump the brakes. I don't know who's putting this stuff out, that people are upset that there were no white dancers. Nobody that I know gave a crap of whether or not there were white dancers or not. We talked about it on my show. I believe that after the show, after the Super Bowl, I believe people are taking an opportunity to try to divide us and point out things that would cause us to be
can I respond to that exactly to what you are talking about? A lot of people on the far right, even people that do radio shows with no listeners, not you, I'm talking about some people in Las Vegas, were talking about how Taylor Swift was booed and the whole
that was great. I enjoyed that part though.
Okay. Yeah, but anybody with a brain that is not completely biased would understand that's a normal thing for a team like the Philadelphia Eagles or any team for that matter, the opposition to do. Her boyfriend is a star on the Kansas City Chiefs. Number two, because since you brought up the Super Bowl, there's a lot of things that we could dissect.
Oh, the Super Bowl was a
I know you got to run
topic.
soon.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the first president ever to attend a Super Bowl.
Why was that a problem? That was good.
To cost the American taxpayer
Come on.
Hold on a second. So you're going to talk about Doge, right? Donald Trump cost the American taxpayer $20 million. Yesterday on social media, Elon Musk was bragging about, I don't remember what it was, but he saved the country $16 million. Donald Trump cost the country $20 million. He left at halftime. He got his photo op and he left. There's a reason why
he met with the victims. You talked about him going to the crash site in the middle of the
not at a football. He had the opportunity to meet with victims.
But they were honoring the victims there, first of all. And so he did meet them, which was nice. Second of all, having the president of the United States at an event. By the way, the reason why no president ever in history went there wasn't to save money. It's because presidents are very sensitive about how people would receive them at a sporting event. You said Eagles fans like to boo people.
Joe Biden said he didn't want to make it political by showing up.
Biden would have been booed out of the stadium.
Okay, well, again,
Donald Trump was so confident that he could walk in there and not get booed.
Again,
you're ballsy.
Again, I don't think it's ballsy at all to want to go to the Super Bowl and spend $20 million of taxpayer money. And then, by the way, leave at halftime. That's number one. As far as the halftime show is concerned,
a lot of people probably left
Kendrick Lamar is an extremely talented artist.
Yeah.
But I prefer artists that are a little bit older. Like I thought Prince was great. Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney. I prefer
the West Coast Super Bowl show was great. The West Coast Super Bowl show.
But I feel like there are people that are taking the opportunity to go after Kendrick Lamar because they might not like his politics or they might not like his skin color. I truly believe that. Just because it's not my genre of music doesn't mean that the halftime show sucked. It's just not the music that I prefer to listen to. It's just like I'm not a country fan. Okay. I don't like country music, but I wouldn't.
Do you think Beyonce should have got country album of the year?
I don't know because I don't listen to Beyonce's music. What I can tell you, she's one of the most successful artists in the history of the
nobody's
world.
denying. her-
And Kid Rock compared to Beyonce, Kid Rock doesn't have 1% of the sales that a Beyonce has. And Kid Rock is praised by the far right. I think Kid Rock sucks. I think his music is terrible. That's my personal opinion. I think he's a joke. And if you look at Melania Trump and the way she laughed at him at the Republican National Convention, she also agrees with me. I think he's an embarrassment, and I think he's trailer trash.
What is that with Kid Rock for?
I look at somebody like Kendrick Lamar. I think he's a decent dude. All right, we have another question. You ready for this one? And I know you.
Yes, but I do want you to ask your audience what they thought about the halftime show and if Beyonce should have been Country Artist of the Year. I want to know if it's a political thing or I really want to poll your audience on this. I'm curious.
I mean, if MAGA had their way, they'd have Lee Greenwood as the Artist of the Year because he's done such a great job selling those $60 Bibles. I don't know.
Whatever. I'm curious to know if your audience thought Beyonce should be Country Artist of the Year at the Grammys and if they like the halftime show. It's a fair question. I want to know if it's a political.
Somebody says why are Trav, thank you for your donation. He says, why are Trump's officials questioning civil servants who work on the White House National Security Council about how they voted in the 2024 election? Ask David how many times a week he gets on his knees for Donald Trump.
Oh, well, I don't know. It depends on whenever Daddy Trump asks me.
I didn't know. I was reading it as it went along. It was live.
It's funny.
I don't know.
It's
but
funny.
David, listen, man, I do appreciate you coming on. It's always good when we mix it up.
Sure.
You always get the listeners going, and that's what I like.
Yeah, good for ratings.
But I will say this again. I respect the fact that there are some Republicans like you, regardless of our disagreements, that are willing to come on a show like this and have a discussion and debate knowingly. We're not going to agree on a lot of things. I wish there were, quite frankly, more people like you that were willing to have discussions like this. I think America would be a better place. I can't even begin to tell you, David, how many MAGA Republicans I speak to on social media every day, and maybe 5% of them are willing to do this show. So it's always good having these kinds of discussions, and I'm still waiting to do your podcast. By the way.
Yeah, we got to figure that out. We got to talk. Let's talk about this after the show. Look, I appreciate coming on your show. When I was 9 years, the reason why I do this now is because when I was young, I would sit in my family's house, and I'm Jewish, and all Jews argue. Just so you know, it just happens. That's why we're all lawyers. But I would sit around their house, and we would argue politics. I didn't even know I was conservative or Republican or whatever. But I loved the debate. The debate was always the fun part. So I do appreciate coming on and being able to debate with you. It's a shame that we can't debate more in this country without it getting emotional and ruining friendships. So I appreciate you having me on.
I agree. And listen, as much as I can't stand to Candace Owens, as much as I can't stand to Charlie Kirk, if I had the opportunity to do their show, I would absolutely do it. So we'll see. I got to get you to debate David Pakman. He's doing the show Monday. So I got to get you to debate him. But hey, David, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on as always, and have a good rest of your week. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thanks.
Appreciate it. That's David Pollack from the David Pollack podcast. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to reset. By the way, thank you all for the super chat donations. I think we're one away from our goal. I hope I got to all of you. I tried to get to as many of you as I could. One question was, why did they end? David had to run, but one person who donated made a really good question, remark. And why did they get rid of the end racism? Thank you, Hyper, for the donation. Why did they get rid of the end racism? That's a very good question. You'd have to ask the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell, on that one. I certainly don't have a problem with it. I don't know why they got rid of it. Maybe because Donald Trump was showing up. Who the hell knows? So here's what we're going to do. Thank you, Alicia, for your donation. Appreciate you. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to reset and take some phone calls coming back. There's a lot to unpack in that interview. I can't wait to post it. But there's a lot to unpack in that interview with David Pollack, who just joined us. If you're just joining us, you missed a lot. But I did play the audio of Donald Trump saying that now we're not going to buy Gaza. We're just going to own it. And Marco Rubio is sitting there with this weird look on his face, kind of like, I can't believe I have to sit here and listen to this kind of face. So we're talking a little bit about that. And of course, a lot of other news of the day that we've gone over. Donald Trump's interview that I don't think went very well on Fox News, the Super Bowl interview. They've actually released the rest of it yesterday. So we're talking about that as well. Nancy, thank you for your support. We appreciate you. Paul, no major airline accidents in 16 years. That's a very good point, Paul. The felon has 5 in his first 3 weeks. Paul, that is a very, very good point that you just made. Why are we having all these accidents happening now? Did you hear about the crash from what's his name? Vince Neil. Yeah, thank you, Numchuck. He's more up to speed on 80s music than I am. Vince Neil, his private jet got into a crash at landing. One person sadly died. Why are all these things happening now? I think it's a very fair question to ask. All right. So the number to call is 702-221-7283. Here's what I ask from all of you. When you call in, do Numchuck a favor. He's got a lot going on. Give him your name and where you're from. So that way it makes it easier for him so he can move on to the next call. You're not talking to me when you call in at first. You're talking to my producer, Numchuck. So make it easier for him. Give him your name and where you're calling from, because I like to hear where people are from. Make it easier for him and make it easier for us as a show. This is an independently owned radio show. What does that mean? It means I own all my own content. Nobody can tell me what to do or what to say. I own all my stuff. Okay. I don't own Gaza yet, but I do own the radio show. So what does that mean? Pushingthelimits.live. Maybe I will own Gaza one day. I don't know. Pushingthelimits.live is the website. Okay. Wow. Thank you for the donation, Duke. That's really nice of you. Thank you so much for your $25 donation. Check out, speaking of donations, check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live, where you can make donations. You can buy merchandise. We sell shirts, hats, beanies, you name it. And subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. Thank you, Duke, for that generous donation. Thank you, Kevin Quinn. Canadians appreciate you, Brian. Kevin, I appreciate you guys as well. You guys are so nice. And I'm sorry. I apologize as an American for what Donald Trump is putting you guys through. You don't deserve it. You guys are great people. All right, so here's what we're going to do. In 90 seconds, we're going to come back. 702-221-7283. And we are going to be taking your calls next in 90 seconds. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Remy Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part, every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYou101.com.
It's time to wake up and win the weekend. You're listening to the boss of the big ball. Jay Beta. Giving you that grease. Join me every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time for the live action on Vegas Scoreboard Express on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400. Dive into the game day with my in-depth analysis, expert predictions, and winning plays from the sharpest minds in sports betting. It's more than just placing bets. It's about securing wins. Head over to jbtheticket.com and be sure to tune in to KSHP this weekend from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time to ride the winning wave with VSX. Tune in and get your money back from the sports book. All money, all sports, no bull. Miss the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Wolf Wolf Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts and radio listening.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. We just had an all-out, duke-it-out debate with right-wing MAGA supporter and podcaster David Pollack. And we appreciate him being a part of the program. Sorry if you missed it. If you did, you got to subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. And there's certainly plenty of other ways of watching the show, but that's the one that I certainly recommend all of you guys watch the show on. And we appreciate you being a part of the program. So if you missed it, here's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about Donald Trump today, meeting with the King of Jordan, and you see Marco Rubio sitting right next to him, looking visibly uncomfortable. Now Donald Trump has changed his stance, and instead of us buying Gaza, apparently we're just going to take it in and we're going to own it. As far as how he's going to displace 2 million Palestinians, he had no plan for it and no answer for it. So we're certainly talking about that and how Donald Trump supporters have clearly been duped. Thank you, Amex. How long till his face is on the new penny? That's a good question. I don't know. We'll have to look into that, but I think that's a very fair question to ask. All right, number to call, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Joe, who's calling in from Wisconsin. Joe, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. I had posted in the comment section 3 or 4 times with your animated conversation with David Pollack a couple of days before the inauguration. JD Vance made a comment. Someone asked him specifically, what about violent felons getting pardoned? And he said, anyone who assaulted, this is JD Vance, anyone who assaulted police officers should not be pardoned.
Agreed.
And
Yep.
I thought that was a great argument for you.
So I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. Keep in mind, JD Vance is also the same guy that said Donald Trump could be the next American, mustache man. So you're right. If listen, I can't stand JD Vance. I think he's an embarrassment with no backbone. However, when people say to me, hey, if Trump stepped aside or something happened, yes, I'd rather have JD Vance than Trump if I had to choose, because at least I know JD Vance most likely would not have pardoned the violent criminals on January 6th. So, sir, you're absolutely right about that, and I appreciate your phone call. JD Vance did say that. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Brandon. He's calling from North Las Vegas. I love my locals. Hello, Brandon. What's on your mind today?
Hello, sir. Yes, nice to be on your show, and I'll hurry up with the questions, sir. So my main thing, sir, is that maybe it's kind of a personal psychological question, but why do you have such a racial hatred for Donald Trump?
Did you say
racial?
racial?
Your father's age?
Did you say racial hatred?
Yes, because it's called self-racism.
Okay,
when
so
you hate on your own race.
So let me be very clear. The color of Donald Trump's skin, whether it be white or orange, literally has zero to do with why I dislike him. Let me lay it out for you, Brandon. Okay. And that's really weird that you would bring up the color of his skin. His color of his skin has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with, Brandon, is the fact that he is a liable abuser of women. The fact that 25 women have come forward and have accused him of a word that starts with the letter R. The fact that he has attacked Gold Star families. The fact that he has attacked POWs. I don't respect John McCain because he was captured. The fact that he has dodged the military multiple times. The fact that he makes $3 Bibles built in China, made in China, and then sells them here for $60. The fact that he's a grifter. Trump University. He is a scam artist. The way he's treated. Hold on a second, Brandon, we're not talking about anybody else but Donald Trump right now. You asked me a question, and you made a claim that somehow I'm racist towards white people, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's true.
Okay,
if you're calling people trailer trash,
Brandon. First of all,
that's a derogatory term.
Brandon, we're talking about Donald Trump. Let's try to focus for a moment. Those things that I just listed for you have nothing to do with the color of Donald Trump's skin. It has to do with his behavior and his criminality. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's also a 34-count felon.
How would you feel if another white person called you a cracker and stuff on your own stuff?
So, Brandon, never once on this show have I ever used that term. It's funny how you don't listen to what I say. Brendan, you asked me a question with respect. I'm respectfully answering your question. I just listed you
and I'm respectfully answering
Did I ever use that term? Did I ever call Donald Trump that or anybody white on this show ever? The answer,
I never said you
Brandon,
did.
Then why, Brandon, I need you to listen now. Then why would you bring it up? You claim that somehow let me tell you who I'm biased towards. I don't use the term racist because I'm not a racist, and I don't judge people based on skin color, what they look like. I don't do that. I don't do that whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're orange. Well, maybe when you're orange, okay? But we're having a little fun with the makeup that Donald Trump puts on. Brandon, you said I'm racist. Let me be clear. I don't like Donald Trump because of those things that I mentioned. Now let me ask you a question in reverse. I believe the real racist is Donald Trump. Why do I say that? First of all, he only hired one African-American in his administration. Number two, he once said that he didn't want black people to count his money in his casinos, but he wanted Jews to count his money. Donald Trump has lost thousands of civil lawsuits because he didn't want black people to live in the residences that he owned in New York City. Now, when you call somebody a racist, you have to have evidence to back it up. You said, I'm racist towards Donald Trump. No, sir. I just tend not to like people who abuse women. I tend not to like people that are 34 count felons. I tend not to like people like Donald Trump who insult everybody and anybody that disagree with him. Brandon, am I not making any sense with you at all? Can you at least say, okay, Brian, that makes a little bit of sense?
It makes sense, but you don't understand in the sense of you're actually being hypocritical of what you say you're against.
Give me a specific example. Give me a specific example, please.
One thing, trailer trash, if you studied history,
never called Donald Trump that.
Never Caucasians that used against other Caucasians.
Pot him down again. First, you used the term cracker, which I said I never called Donald Trump that name. I also never called Donald Trump trailer trash. So now you've said two things on this show. You specifically were in reference to Donald Trump. Now, I ask you again, because you're making, with all due respect, Brandon, I'm happy to have this conversation with you, but you're kind of making yourself sound like a fool. I never called Donald Trump, quote, trailer trash, and I never called Donald Trump, quote, a cracker. Maybe you have me confused with Antonio Brown, who since has blocked me on social media. Brandon, what have I said about Donald Trump specifically that would lead you to believe that it's a racist statement or that I'm racist towards Donald Trump as we pod you back up on the program? Go ahead.
Everything is obsessed with Donald Trump. If you want to criticize
that is not racism. That is not Brandon. That is not racism. No. You just said everything I do. So if a Republican criticizes Joe Biden 24/7, does that make them a racist? Donald Trump criticizes Democrats and lefties 24/7. Does that make him a racist? So according by Brandon's standards, if you criticize,
hold on, MAGA Republicans, and not every Republican is MAGA and white.
Never have I ever said on this. Boy, you say things that I've never said.
You said 1,000 before.
Brandon, have I ever said every single person that is a Donald Trump supporter is white? Have I ever made that statement on the show?
You said MAGA white Republicans. That right there is saying you hate white Republicans.
No, it's not. No, it's not. See, you say things that, and
so
you make
I guess white means something else to
Are
you.
you going to listen? Because that's the problem with you. You don't listen. You've claimed that I've called Donald Trump a cracker. Never said that once on or off the air. You've claimed that I've called Donald Trump trailer trash. Never said that on or off the air. I've called Donald Trump a lot of names. I've never called them that. So you lied about that. Number three, when I talk about white MAGA Republicans, I am putting them in a category of a specific type of Republican that refers to black people and talks about DEI hires, the Charlie Kirks of the world, the people that go to his rallies and buy his Bibles.
Why do you want corrupt blacks working? Is that for the government and being pawns? That's you. That shows white racism, and you want white superiority right there. We can do things ourselves.
When did I say that?
We don't need you.
When
guys.
did I?
Liberal.
Hey, first of all, I'm not a liberal moron. Okay, so you're again saying something about me that is not true.
You got insulted. You wouldn't protect yourself.
Okay, excuse me. when somebody characterizes me as, I guess
You
you're,
see, right
are you
now,
racist
it's
towards
the white
liberals, Brandon?
Malcolm X said
Brandon,
it. White
Brandon,
liberals
Brandon,
were the ones
Brandon,
who
are you
hated black
racist?
people.
Brandon, I think you're racist. I think you're racist towards liberals. Why do you
Thank you.
categorize me?
That shows black people
I think you're a
racist towards
racist.
whites too.
No, no, no,
You
no.
proved my
No,
point.
no, 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 no. I'm not saying black people are racist. I'm saying,
No, you
Brandon,
just said it.
you're
That's a white
racist.
boy.
I think you're racist. Brandon, are you a racist?
Oh, thank you. You're a racist too.
Thank
So
you.
that shows
So
racism
when
does
somebody
exist. You
calls me
proved-
a racist, I don't say thank you. I defend myself because I am not. Brandon just admitted that he is a racist. Hey, Kanye, can I call you Kanye? I think we have Kanye. What do you think about Jewish people, Kanye? Go ahead, Kanye. What do you think about the Jews? Kanye, go ahead.
Dude, I'm already Jewish because I'm Semitic. Duh,
All right.
idiot.
Brandon, you're just a complete imbecile. You're an idiot and you're a disgrace. I don't know what race you are. I don't know what religion you are. I don't know what you look like, but whatever you are, you're an embarrassment to your people. Whatever you are. I have no idea what you are. You mischaracterized me in every single aspect. You claim that I called Donald Trump things that I've never called him. I've called him a lot of things, but I never called him a cracker. And I never said, what is the other thing he said? I don't know. Trailer trash? I don't know. Brandon, I think you're a racist. Have a nice day. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. We are going to go back to the super chat. Michelle, thank you so much for your donation. Michelle says, hey, Brian, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I love your show. Thanks for keeping it real. Well, Michelle, thanks to people like you, we are able to do what we do, and we appreciate your support. We appreciate everybody. Riot, thank you for your support. He says Brandon's testes haven't dropped yet. He might be right about that. All right, let's go. Let's go back to the phone calls, if I may. Let's go to John, is calling from Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, John, what's going on?
Brian, what's going on? This is John. Long-time listener, always calls when I get a chance to.
Thank you.
First of all, Brandon is an idiot. Brandon is a typical MAGA moron.
Agree.
Secondly, David, tell David Pollard to put the dog whistle away regarding Beyonce. He act like a black person can't win a Grammy for country singing. It was kind of founded on black artists back in the day.
Do you find that a little racist? I find that kind of strange. Like, for example, when Eminem was winning all those awards for his hip hop, and I think we all could agree, Eminem, extremely talented individual. I wasn't questioning him for his skin color. I didn't hear a lot of black people that were saying, oh, do you think he deserves it? Like, I heard a lot of black people. I saw a lot of black people embracing him. Dr. Dre, Snoop, they all embraced Eminem and they said, hey, this guy can rap. He's really talented. Why is it that people on the right, particularly white people, question Beyonce? Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. Secondly, but Kendrick Lamar,
yeah,
I thought his show was brilliant. I thought it was excellent. When I first followed Kendrick Lamar, I kind of didn't like him because I thought he rapped too fast. But then I heard him speak, and when I heard him speak, I said, "This individual is very intellectual. He's very his mind is just on another level." And basically, he wanted to let people know about black people's struggles and the revolution.
You are correct.
Being televised.
And here's the thing: he's not a MAGA supporter. He doesn't cave to MAGA. He's a decent, hardworking individual who happens to be very talented. Now, even I am not a fan of his music, but it doesn't mean I don't respect it. I don't appreciate it. And I tried to make that correlation to David. I'm not a country music fan. However, Shania Twain, Garth Brooks, there are plenty of people I can name where I say they're very talented individuals. Beyonce Knowles is obviously a very talented individual. Jay-Z is obviously a very talented individual, right?
You can't forget about Troy Pride either.
Right.
Troy Pride was good. He was a brother that was a country singer.
Exactly.
Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton. I mean, those were both gifted. Well, Dolly Parton, of course, and Kenny Rogers were white, but they were still gifted in their race. And Dolly Parton, her song, that Whitney Houston song, she changed from a country song to an R&B song, but it was still great. So I don't know
why.
My
friend. I agree. I think we all know the answer. I think, go ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
Before I go, I want to know, why do the right always have a problem with African Americans that dip into their genre versus when white individuals dip into African Americans?
It's a really good question.
Not a problem.
It's a really good question. I'm giving you the answer because they don't want, some of these MAGA supporters, they don't want brown people to succeed. They don't even want brown and black people in this country, let alone succeeding. Make America Great Again means make America white again. Let's call it for what it is. 702. Thank you for the call, sir. Great call. 702-221-7283. Kim is calling out of Dallas, Texas. What's going on, Kim?
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind today, Kim?
Okay, I'm the one who did the first chat on the Nazi, and why would anyone, your guest, support anyone who supports Nazism as a president?
Yeah.
First of all, he's uneducated. Nazism is not only about Jews. It's a bigger picture. And anyone who can do research and pull it up from political historians, they will give you the characteristics, the traits, the ideology, the beliefs. This is serious. It goes beyond just being a Jew.
Yeah.
And I think your guest, he needs to understand that that's the whole point. It is huge. And you can't be banning books. You can't be taking rights away from people. And then you segregate Hispanics and Blacks. I've got the last name Perez. Am I next? And my mom's from East Germany. My mother grew up and fled East Germany as a child. I spent about 2 months in East Germany before the wall came down as a 15-year-old. I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I know what my relatives had to deal with. And Nazism encompasses everything you can think of that's not good.
So I agree.
Communism,
I agree with you 150%, and make no mistake about it. And I appreciate your call. This is a dictatorship. This is an oligarchy. Trump's Twitter friend, as I'm trying to remember her name, the Jasmine Crockett mentioned yesterday, has our personal information, and we don't know what he's doing with it. This is dangerous. That caller is 150% correct, and I am with you. Let's go to Richard, who is calling from West Virginia, home of Bobby Huggins. Let's go to Richard. Richard, what's going on?
How you doing, Brian? I'll be real quick. I just wanted to, I'm a first time calling in. I watched your program for about last month, and I just think you're doing a great job. I think you should keep up the good work, and you're really telling everybody how bad Trump is. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to realize in a couple of years how bad his policies really are and how they're going to hurt real working people.
So first of all,
I really wanted to say.
Yeah, let me ask you first.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question, if that's okay. And by the way, I really do appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. So you said a lot. I tend to think that when the economy goes down the tubes, which it will, which it is, and when people are losing their 401ks and they're losing their jobs, I still tend to think that at least half, maybe more, of those who voted for Donald Trump because they are in a cult will still blame Democrats and Joe Biden. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I live in West Virginia, and it's a red state. You probably already know that.
Yep,
and they have a lot. And I've lived here. Well, I didn't come from here. I came from Ohio, but I've lived here for 34 years, and I've seen policies like Trump advocates for and what they do to real working people in here in West Virginia, because West Virginia is just devastated.
No, I hear you.
It
is. Sure. And Donald Trump is trying to take away all of your benefits, to take away the food stamps, take away the welfare, take away the maternity leave, take away a woman's right to choose, give the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%. Virtually all of Donald Trump's policies are not going to help people like you, not going to help people in West Virginia, people across the country that are struggling, that are living paycheck to paycheck. I see people, some on social media, that are challenging me, but yet these are the same people who don't call into my show. It's interesting, isn't it? 702-221-7283. If you're a MAGA supporter and you want to have a debate with me and you want to challenge me, go for it. Let's go to Kim. Kim is calling from also West Virginia. Hey, Kim, what's going on?
Hey, Brian, what the gentleman there that just called you is, he doesn't know, and they're keeping it hid, is the town that I live in. Well, I live in the outer skirts, but I grew up in the town. Elon Musk and his little, I call them his Russian meons, come in town this morning. They are going, they're at the public debt and going through all the personnel files and everything else. And tomorrow they're going to our Social Security office and going through all the files. They're keeping it hid. Now, the UCLA, they are in town and they have not brung it out. And yesterday I went downtown to try to get a permit when I found out, just by accident, that he was coming to get a permit to do a peaceful protest. Well, they acted stupid, like, well, they didn't know he was coming.
Yeah.
They sent me for everywhere, all over town, and I finally said, give it up. So I then called the head of the Democrat Party here, which I was part of, and they were useless here because there wasn't very few of them. And he said, yeah, and UCLA's coming in. So, of all things, I hadn't went and gotten and made my signs up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell this morning down the steps, and I just got home a little while ago from the hospital. I fell.
No, I'm sorry.
And yeah, I had to.
Well, take care. Listen, take care of your. Listen. Number one, you sound like a very nice lady. Take care of your health. Take care of yourself, physical and mental. Do the things in life that make you happy. I try to do that. This is my job, but I try to separate my job from my personal life. Take care of yourself and be careful. Okay, that would be my advice to you, and you're welcome to call back to this show anytime, my dear. I appreciate you. So there's someone on social media that just said, Brian, you're just going to cut off MAGA. Why should I call in? Well, first of all, we had a MAGA caller who was the second caller of this show. I kept him on for 10 minutes. That's number one. Number two, I had a guy named David Pollock on this show. We did a 45-minute debate. That's number two. If you call into this show and you're willing to have a respectful conversation and civil, then I'm glad to have it with you. But if you start off the conversation by mischaracterizing me, which, by the way, Brandon did, mischaracterizing my opinions, or just saying blatantly ignorant things, then it's not going to go very well for you. But you won't find me conservative talk radio that gives liberals that platform, because they are a bunch of cowards. I interview more Republicans than Democrats on this show. Let's go to Shelley. Shelley is calling in from West Virginia as well. What's going on, Shelley?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
I want to make it very clear. Trump is a racist, and I have evidence or proof. He had dinner with Nick Fuentes and somebody else.
And Yee. Yes, that's true.
And who?
Yee, also known as Kanye West, who, by the way, he's selling T-shirts for $20 that have horrible anti-Semitic symbols on it. I'll leave it at that.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I know. And Trump says he's better than everybody. His brain is bigger than everybody's. He's a genius. And he wouldn't even walk into your home.
Yeah.
He wouldn't wipe his nose on your Sunday best.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going to get us in a war in Gaza.
Well, you know, it's interesting you brought that up.
Period.
Yeah, you might be right on that. So you can't just take over Gaza. You can't buy it. He claimed yesterday he was going to buy Gaza, or we were going to buy Gaza. And now he's saying, no, we don't need to buy it. We're just going to take it over. While Marco Rubio is sitting there with a very concerned look on his face, similar to the looks that John Kelly gave at some of Donald Trump's press conferences. It's not going to go well for Marco Rubio. It's not going to go well for anybody in Donald Trump's administration unless they're willing to go to jail for him. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. All right, let's go to Paul. He's calling out of California. What's going on, Paul? Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Oh, man. Well, I haven't heard the word trailer trash used that much since my dad is from Terre Haute, Indiana, so that was kind of weird.
Yeah, apparently that's why I don't like Donald Trump, because I'm racist against white people. That's a great take. What a great take.
Yeah, sure. You know, you're right about these MAGA supporters that are finding out, because, like, there's that viral video with this guy on the farm. But here's the reality, Brian. They didn't care about, and I say this as a former Republican, they're the most selfish people in this country. And I'm not saying that Democrats are perfect. I'm an independent now. But they voted knowing that this man was, like your caller that came in earlier on the show, right? He didn't care that Trump was a rapist. He didn't care that he was a felon. He didn't care that police officers have brain injury. And these people on these farms, they didn't care about any of that. They just cared that all of a sudden their business is being affected. And they might say, I regret my vote, but I guarantee you that come 28, they're going to write in JD Vance's name if we still have a democracy.
They very well might, but what do you
Ted
make
Cruz.
of Donald Trump's answer of his successor? He said no. That's not the best endorsement of your vice president.
Brian, there may not be another election, and I think this country is. The Democrats are excuse my language, but they're shitting the bed. They are absolutely useless. They truly are. Hakeem Jeffries is a joke. Schumer is a dinosaur. Pelosi is a dinosaur.
Yeah.
McConnell's a dinosaur. They're literally doing nothing. I remember during the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King being arrested for getting into trouble.
Right.
Why aren't any Democrats in jail by storming the Department of Education? Why aren't they in jail right now protesting?
I think, Paul, you bring up some. I think you're right. I don't disagree with you, as always. I mean, you made a lot of good points there, and I've criticized Hakeem Jeffries. I've criticized the Democrats as a whole. There are some good Democrats out there, Jasmine Crockett being one of them, and I mention her name all the time because I think she's awesome. But yeah, the Democrats are weak. They have to fight fire with fire. And Paul, I agree with everything you said. Hakeem Jeffries is a decent man. I don't think he's a bad man. But he needs to do a better job in combating MAGA. The Democrat Party need to do a better job. They lost, okay? Because they lost, in my opinion, America lost. Let's get back to the phone lines. Let's go to Keith, who's calling out of Florida. Thanks for calling in, Keith. What's on your mind?
Well, I got three things for Mr. David Pollack there.
Okay.
Number one, fentanyl is not killing millions of people. 2022, the latest year that stats are available, 107,941 overdose deaths in America. That's number one. Number two, I don't know how the police work, but when I was in the Army, if you didn't do what you were ordered to do, you got court-martialed.
Yeah.
And number three, prices are not coming down.
Yep.
A 1 pound, 14-ounce container of coffee here where I shop was $9 before January 20th. It's now $16. That's not coming down. That's going up.
Right. And they're not leveling off either. Like that was just not true. Listen, I tried to give him the facts. I tried to point out the hypocrisy. For example, you can't say you're a party of law and order when you're okay with people who beat police officers getting pardoned, but all these undocumented immigrants, ship them out. They broke the law and order. But if you beat cops, you should be free. You lose not some, but all credibility. And that's what I tried to point out with him and putting him in a corner when it comes to that. And then, all of a sudden, they don't want to blame Donald Trump for the high price of eggs. They want to say disease and bird flu. Okay, fine. But where were you when for 4 years, you were blaming Joe Biden for inflation? By the way, the numbers drastically lowered, but yet you never blamed that on COVID. You never blamed it on the war in Ukraine. I mean, again, blatant hypocrisy. I do it with MAGA every day.
Yeah, I think anybody that beats anybody should be in jail.
I agree. 100%. I'm with you.
I mean, I'm against violence of any kind.
I agree with you 100%, but many of these MAGA supporters can't even say that. They want to talk about Maxine Waters. Oh, well, she said get confrontational. Oh, okay. Well, your guy just released a bunch of insurrectionist, white supremacist, violent criminals who beat cops. But let's talk about Maxine Waters because she said, let's be confrontational. Thank you for the call, sir. 702-221-7283. Elsie is calling out of Oklahoma. Thank you for calling in, Elsie. What's on your mind?
Well, hi, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. I've been sitting a while.
Thank you for your patience. Go right ahead.
Oh, it's no problem. No problem at all. First of all, I think Brandon has the orange one's penis in his ear.
Perhaps.
He just don't listen.
Perhaps. It must be a very small ear, but I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
Well, Trump has small hands.
That's true. That's true. That's true. What's on your mind?
I was always told that you judge a man's size by his feet and his hands. So, yeah.
That's true. My hands are average. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. But anyway, I'm 73. I still have to work just to support just a mundane living, And right now I'm off work because I have to have a hip replacement. Doctor told me too much dancing and too much walking.
Wow.
So
you got to stop doing the Trump dance. You got to stop doing that Trump dance.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I come from a family where I've got 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the oldest, and they're repugs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I'm not a Democrat. I am liberal, I guess. I'm an independent.
Yeah.
I had a brother stand up and put his finger in my face in front of company and tell me I was going to vote Trump.
Wow.
Now my brother is like 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5'5", and I'm like 1/3 his size.
I would have told your brother to F off, and I would have said, "Get the hell out of here."
Well,
That's what I would have.
actually, I stood up. And I told him, I said, "How dare you try to tell me who I'm going to vote for?
Yeah.
I'm the oldest. I've lived through more presidents than you.
Yeah.
I've seen all this bull crap, and I will not vote for Trump."
So what's wrong with your brother?
And
Why
if
do
you
you think he growing up? Why do you think he's like that? What's the trigger for him?
I don't know, but I told him if he ever put his finger in my face again, I was going to break it.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you, my dear. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Your brother sounds like a douchebag, and you sound like a lovely lady. Well, this is MAGA, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, as somebody said on social media, it's cult behavior. That's exactly what it is, and I appreciate your call. All right, it's time for the MAGA Destroyer. It's been a little while to get from Oklahoma, Darlene, known as the MAGA Destroyer. Darlene, thanks for calling in. Let's go for it. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. Bear with me because I'm still sick. Now, listen. First of all, Brandon, you are nothing but a whiny little idiot that needs to change your diaper. There is not an ounce of... Brian is never like what you said, ever. Get that in your head. He's not a racist.
For those of you
And
that
second of all,
hold on 1 second, Darlene. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll let you finish. For those of you that don't know who are, that's okay. For people that are joining the show, we had a MAGA guy named Brandon that called in that claimed I was racist towards Donald Trump because I'm racist towards white people. First of all, the skin color was wrong. It was orange. And second of all, Donald Trump's skin color has nothing to do with why I have a disdain for the orange orangutan. Okay, that had nothing to do with it. Go ahead, Darlene.
Okay, Brian, I want everybody to listen to this. I'm going to read this paragraph from a MAGA, and I want y'all, especially if you're in Oklahoma, listen to this. My wife called to tell me that some friends of ours who are cotton farmers in Oklahoma just lost their biggest contract with a Canadian buyer. The buyer felt there was too much instability, so he signed a deal with a cotton producer in Brazil. The Trump effect strikes again.
Yeah.
And Brian, since I've been sick, I have seen one after another MAGA people crying. One man lost his farm. One man was crying because he said he had a job for 20 years.
Yeah.
He just got the call that he lost his job because of Trump.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's really awful. Well, Darlene, I got to tell you, we got to keep up the fight. We got to keep up the fight. We got to keep doing what we're doing. I'm sorry to hear that one of your friends lost his job. If there's anything that we could do to help, I would certainly do that. But, maybe buyer's remorse for some people. I don't know. Let's go to Brian. Brian is calling out of Massachusetts. What's going on, Brian? Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, Brian, I'm a big fan. I've been watching you like every day since this election, since I found you on YouTube.
Thank you.
I don't know if you're struggling on YouTube like other people are getting getting censored, getting devalued on YouTube. I literally can't. I'm censored every 2 days. I can't say the word Nazi. They've been censoring my politics for 4 years on Google. I was getting traction back in 2001 with my comments. I was getting 500-600 likes on my comments. And then I just started getting 1 or 2.
Right.
There's definitely a system that is taking our voices away from us. And I think that's why TikTok is under assault. TikTok is under assault. They're trying to force it to spew Elon Musk propaganda 24/7. They're trying to make China bend the knee so that Elon can take this one over too, like he did with Twitter. It's just so frustrating, and I feel like we're just getting pushed to the side. The people who are low propensity voters that I talk to, they know nothing. I said, hey, did you hear this news story? Did you hear this news story? They don't know any of it.
Well, it's interesting how you talk about censorship because as you say that, I'm doing a TikTok live, and listen, I think TikTok is absolutely terrible. I think they're worse than any other, maybe even worse than X, as far as censoring those that are anti-Donald Trump. And they just took, they gave me a warning, and they took down my TikTok live. That's why I don't go live on TikTok a lot. I post a lot of stuff on there, but I don't go live on there because, for example, if you call Donald Trump what he is, which is a liable sexual abuser, they'll call that bullying and harassment. It's a joke. TikTok is a joke, is what they are. And I'm sorry you're going through that. Listen, I am going through the same, my friend. I can tell you that I think YouTube is more than fair, at least in my experience and the way they've treated me. They have a checking system on YouTube where you have to go through the process of getting all your stuff checked first before you post, which TikTok does not have. And I have nothing bad to say about YouTube. They've been great to me. I appreciate your call, and I'm sorry you're going through that. Let's see. Let's go to Paul, who is calling in out of Las Vegas, I believe. Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you, Brian?
Good. What's on your mind today?
I went shopping today, grocery shopping, with my service dog, and I was accosted by a MAGA supporter because I didn't have a vest on my dog. And I had to defend myself because this guy, who was a veteran, told me that I needed a service vest on my dog.
Can I ask you why? How did you know he was a Trump supporter?
Because I threw it out there, and he goes, yeah, I am.
So he comes up to you, a random stranger that's a Trump supporter, and he says your dog needs to have a vest. By the way, that's not the law. The dog doesn't have to have a vest. You know that, especially if it's a service dog. They're not even allowed to ask you why it's a service dog. So tell me how that conversation goes from there.
Okay, so you know how it goes. I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to do you in right here in the parking lot, blah, blah, blah. He walked away. I walked away. But I walked away shaking my head like, you self-entitled, ignorant, uneducated person.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening to the families in and around America who are suffering. And like the farmer in Oklahoma who lost the coffee deal. I mean, come on, America.
What you just said,
start standing up.
What you just said is an analogy that I will use to MAGA as a whole. For example, you walking your dog is totally not affecting this individual's life in any way, shape, or form. But they make it out to be a big issue and cause a confrontation. It's the same way Republicans, MAGA Republicans, like this idiot that ran into you, they think about drag queen reading, or they think about books, or they think about transgenders in bathrooms. They don't want to talk about the important issues like a woman's right to choose, or example, discrimination. They don't want to talk about Obamacare. If they do, they'll complain about it, but they don't have a replacement plan for it. They don't want to talk about any of these really important issues that face Americans today. They want to talk about a guy walking his dog that doesn't have the correct collar. They want to talk about people going into restrooms that might be transgender. They want to talk about banning books. They want to talk about drag queen reading. Most of America that are not bigots and bad people don't care about you walking your dog. They don't care about a transgender in the restroom. They care about the more important issues that I discussed. And that guy that went up to you today and started harassing you, because that's what he was doing, because your dog might have not had the proper collar, is the same guy that I guarantee you preaches to 24/7 about how horrible transgenders are and how horrible books are and how our teachers are indoctrinating all of our kids. He probably talks about critical race theory, but he never talks about the real issues facing Americans, the issues that Donald Trump will make worse.
Correct. That's it. And we as Americans have to start standing up for ourselves.
I agree.
We have to start protesting. We have to get people motivated to get off their ass and get out there.
Yeah.
Boycott Trump Tower.
Yeah.
It's right down the street.
I agree.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. If that guy in Las Vegas is listening, the guy, or I'm sorry, where did you say you were calling from?
I'm calling from Vegas.
If the guy from Las Vegas is listening, which he probably isn't because he only wants to listen to right-wing echo chamber radio, if he gets attacked by a pit bull and has to go to the hospital, he did it to himself and it's karma. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Jean Marie calling out of Las Vegas as well. What's up, Jean Marie?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Good. Couple of bullets. I am originally from Boston.
Oh. Okay.
I wrote a scholarly paper about antisocial and, sociopathy.
Yeah.
Genetic or learned. And I use Trump and his dad as a example. And the scholarly paper got actually, I submitted it to magazines and it got published.
Oh.
I got a cease and desist letter from Trump
really?
for a scholarly paper. And I brought it to I was recommended to this law firm because I'd never had a legal paper in my face before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Guess who I met?
Who?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, wow. A legend.
And
wow.
A legend. Anyway, she was there and she read the letter. She laughed. She goes, "Oh, he sends 1,000 of these a day."
Cease and assist. Yeah, I bet he does.
She says, "Oh, that's all he's good for."
Yeah. Well, she
goes,
was right. She was right.
Okay, so this was years ago.
Right.
Okay, this was 80s.
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah.
All right. So I've hated this man ever since. And anyway, what I wanted to get out is, have you been paying attention? The Dems could take over the Congress.
They could.
The special elections coming up. What do you think our chances are?
That's hard for me to say. I think maybe 50-50 at this point.
Okay.
Maybe that's being a little generous. I don't know, but I'm very frustrated with the Democrat Party today. I think there are some good people within the party, but I think they need to be more aggressive. They need to fight fire with fire. We need more Jasmine Crockett's. Again, I'm going to keep bringing up her name. I'm going to keep bringing up her name every day. We need more Josh Shapiro's. Thank you for the call, my dear. That's a great story, by the way. Let's go to Tim. Tim is next from Virginia. What's up, Tim?
Hi, Tim. Hi. I am just loving your show, Brian.
Oh, thank you.
Love your energy and everything. Yeah. So I want to talk about Trump in this universe.
Okay.
I am really surprised that there has not been more news and stories about this coming about the 20 years that he was the co-owner of Miss Universe. I have a lot of firsthand knowledge about this. My friend was Miss Universe 1995, Chelsea Smith from Houston, Texas, and she was the first biracial Miss Universe and the first American to win in nearly 2 decades at that time in 1995. She got so much publicity across the country. She was just loved that we finally had an international beauty queen, Chelsea Smith. People can Google her. She's amazing.
Yep.
Donald Trump bought the Miss Universe pageant because of Chelsea Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, his eyes open were like, oh my God, a beauty pageant. This girl, this American girl won. She got so much publicity. Let's buy the Miss Universe pageant. He bought it, and boy, changes just went like crazy. Okay, all of the allegations that you have heard about the predatory abuse of Donald Trump is all true. All true.
Well, what about going into the pageants? Going into the pageants with a bunch of teenage girls when he owned the pageants, bragging about it sexually on the Howard Stern show? I mean, think about
that was 1996 when Donald Trump bought the pageant. In 1996 and in 1997,
right,
Miss Teen USA pageant, he had Ivanka, of all people, who was just a teenager herself, be the co-host of the pageant.
Have you ever said, I don't know if you have kids,
totally
but
crazy.
Oh, crazy. I don't know if you've ever said, if she wasn't my daughter, I would date her. You want to talk about creepy. It's so interesting. These same right-wing turds who say, they called him Creepy Joe. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is talking sexually about his daughter and her body being voluptuous and all those other ridiculous comments. Sir, you're absolutely right, and I really do appreciate your call. So since we are up against the clock, I know we have a lot of people that are waiting on hold. I'm just not going to be able to get to all of them. Julie, Jeff, Betty, Carl, please try calling a little bit earlier tomorrow, and I promise I will do my best to get all of you. Went a little bit late with my guest today. My apologies for that. I also want to thank David Pollack for joining us, even though I disagree with him on a number of issues that we spoke about today. I do appreciate him joining us on the program. David Pakman's going to be joining us on Monday, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of his work, so he's going to be joining us on Monday. Also want to thank the official gaming bar of the PTL radio show, which is Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Man, they've got so many great promotions there, including the Pass the Puck contest, where you can win up to $500 in free slot play just for playing a machine, sitting there relaxing, grabbing a beer and playing a machine. Check them out. Great food, great atmosphere. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. So I'm getting so many emails from people every day, and I apologize. I got to do a better job at getting back to all of you. I'm getting bombarded by emails, but there's a reason why I put my work email up there, because I like hearing from all of you. And if I don't respond right away, don't be offended by that. I promise you, I'm reading all of your emails, all sorts of different ideas and people that appreciate what I do. Educated, informed people. I read all the emails. Sometimes I don't have a chance to get back to all of them, but I will do my best to do so this week. And I appreciate all of you. I also appreciate everybody that has been making donations in the super chat, checking out my website. It means the world to me. And this is an independently owned radio show. So to keep us going, we rely on good people like yourselves, and we appreciate you. So what can you do to help us? Well, pushingthelimits.live is my website, not pushingthelimits.com. We tried to get that. Pushingthelimits.live is the website. Subscribe to my YouTube page, but more than just subscribe, give me the thumbs up. Be interactive on my YouTube page. You can do it right now on the live. Give me a thumbs up. Be interactive. Make some comments on there. Give me some comments, positive or negative. I'll take it. And that's a big deal. So subscribe to my YouTube page. We sell merchandise on the website, pushingthelimits.live. We sell shirts. We sell beanies. We sell a little bit of everything, coffee mugs, PTL gear on pushingthelimits.live. If you don't want merchandise, you could always make a donation, which we would appreciate, right there on the front page where it says donate. Love all you guys. Appreciate you guys. We will be doing it again tomorrow. Same time, same place. Stay safe out there. Look forward to doing it. We're going to take a 22-hour break. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout.